In his Instagram notes from October 2013, Donald Glover said, quote, "The label doesn't want me to release in December because it's not a holiday record, and I'm not a big artist. I started the record last Christmas. Christmas always made me feel lonely, but it helped me restart the new year. I want people to this album when everything's closed, when everything slows down and quiet, so you can start over. I got really lost last year, but I can't be lonely though, because we're all here. We're all stuck here. I want to make something that says, no matter how bad you fuck up, or mistakes you've made during the year, your life, your eternity, you're always allowed to be better. You're always allowed to grow up, if you want." These words are pretty powerful, and it represents a turning point in Glover's career. Glover was ready to restart, to quote-unquote grow up, as he put it. He started this process through creating Because the Internet, something I talked extensively about in my last video. In Because the Internet, we follow the boy as he learns to get off the bus and challenge himself to change his thinking and ultimately who he is as a person. Glover challenges us as people to change too with the boy. To take a look at what we're consuming on the internet, to change how we react to what we see on the internet, and to reflect on our everyday behavior. Glover said he wanted people to listen to his new album, Because of the Internet, when everything's closed, when everything slows down and quiet. Sound familiar? It should. That's right. This sounds exactly like quarantine. Earlier this year, Glover released his newest album, 3/15/20, in the midst of quarantine, and while some have speculated that he was finished with the album for a while and was planning on releasing it in December 2020, as he released both Because of the Internet and Awaken My Love in December, clearly it makes more sense as to why the album was released when quarantine hit. Glover decided it was the perfect time to release the album, because it was a time when everything's closed, when everything slows down and quiet, and when we have the best chance to slow down as people and look back and realize, quote, "You're always allowed to be better, you're always allowed to grow up, if you want." For me personally, the album was a light in the darkness of the early days of quarantine. 3/15/20 made me feel less alone and stressed in the world when it released. The last song on the album especially helped me feel better. This album was made before quarantine, but I do think the pandemic and quarantine gives new context to 3/15/20. On the last song on the album, 53.49, Gambino has this line. "Every day is Sunday morning, woo, you hella late." This line stuck out to me when first listening to 3/15/20 because of how true it was at the time. During quarantine, each day faded into the next, and every day felt like Sunday morning, and that everything seemed strangely peaceful and empty because the world was pretty much closed. There's also the religious aspect to consider to this line. In Christianity, Sunday is a day of worship and rest. Most Christians consider it the Lord's Day. It's also the day of Christ's resurrection. Through this line, perhaps Gambino is suggesting that every day is a chance for us to be reborn and resurrect ourselves and change who we are. Religion and spirituality are prominent themes in 3/15/20, something I'll delve into later. The release of 3/15/20 seemed to create more questions than it answered, however. Questions like, why is the album cover a white square? Why are the track names just timestamps? Is this really the last Childish Gambino album? And finally, what does it all mean? In this video, I will look to answer these questions, and then I'll go track by track and really dive into the meaning of 3/15/20. Firstly, in early 2017, Glover famously announced that the next Gambino album was his last. One may assume that Donald Glover said that his next album was his last just to drive up hype. And while a lesser artist might do something like that, I don't think Donald Glover was lying when he said his next album was the last Gambino album. Now I can hear you all watching this video now. But Matt, what about Donald's tweet where he pretty much confirms he's working on another album? For sure that proves he lied, right? To that, I would say no. I think Donald Glover is very intentional with his language, and I'll get into later why I think what he said in 2017 wasn't a lie. So with that out of the way, let's start answering some questions. So why is the album cover a white square? Well, my theory is that it represents a blank slate. Maybe 3/15/20 represents Glover trying to restart his music career. On the Wikipedia page for the color white, it says that white can represent, quote, the beginning, the new, unquote. So maybe that is what 3/15/20 is. A new beginning for Donald Glover. I don't think it's a coincidence that his album was initially titled Donald Glover Presents. The album initially being Donald Glover Presents to me represents Glover leaving behind the Childish Gambino moniker and restarting his music career as Donald Glover. Notice how Donald Glover said, quote, "I'll see you for the last Gambino album." It has been speculated for years now that Donald Glover simply wanted to leave behind his Childish Gambino name, and that's why he said the next album was his, quote, "last Gambino album," and not just his last album. So that's why the tweet can exist and Donald Glover's statement cannot be a lie. It's a, from a certain point of view, moment for sure.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
But still one that I think was planned out. I could of course be proven wrong, but I think the release of 3:15:20 pretty much confirms what fans and I already knew. As I mentioned before, the album also has tons of religious references, and even just the fact that it was released on a Sunday may also be a reference to Jesus being reborn on Easter Sunday. Gambino even has this to say on the last track.
Oh, my beard long, damn, I look like Jesus.
Here Gambino even says that he looks like Jesus. Again, another allusion to Christianity, rebirth, and resurrection. The white cover may also be inviting fans to imagine their own album cover, which I also think is an interesting concept. I have a couple theories behind the reasoning for most song names in 3:15:20 being timestamps. My first is that the album is meant to be looked at as one continuous song, and not as individual songs. I think this theory is strengthened by the fact that the album is a continuous loop, with this tone playing at the beginning, and this tone playing at the end of the album. The idea that the album is an infinite loop fits with the idea of the main themes of the album being rebirth and time, as it goes along with the idea of cycles and that everything is a loop, ideas which are also found in some of Glover's earlier work. The idea of infinity and loops is also something I play with in my work. My last short film is literally just titled The Infinity Symbol. I recommend you go watch it after this video if you like what you see here. This album is about time at its core. In the song aptly named Time, Glover sings about how humans are constantly running out of time, saying, he notes how as humans we are always running out of time and how time is unstoppable. In the previous track, Algorithm, Glover also sings, Here Glover comments on the human obsession of death and becoming immortal. In this way, I think the idea of the album is about accepting death, and that only when we accept death as a part of life, and that there cannot be life without death, will we transcend and be reborn or be reincarnated when we die. It's all very abstract, and I think that's what I like most about 3:15:20. The album can really be interpreted in so many ways, which brings me to my next theory about the track names, the Death by Numbers theory. The song Death by Numbers and Because the Internet plays right after the boy attempts suicide in the Because the Internet screenplay. 3:15:20 could very well be a Death by Numbers scenario, Gambino titling his tracks Numbers on purpose as a reference to the song. This also might be a reference to the song in the fact that by titling the tracks on 3:15:20 Numbers, he is essentially killing any chance of 3:15:20 becoming mainstream and being successful, i.e. Death by Numbers. It's hard to recommend songs off 3:15:20 when the song titles are hard to remember. In this sense, 3:15:20 faces another Death by Numbers, those numbers being the low amount of streams the album has gotten, which doom it to fall into obscurity. Much like the boy, Childish Gambino may be committing career suicide via Death by Numbers on 3:15:20. But fortunately, Childish Gambino is only a part of Donald Glover's success, and as I said before, the death of Childish Gambino doesn't necessarily mean the end of Donald Glover's music career. Now I want to briefly go over all 12 tracks of the album and give some thoughts on them and what I think the core themes and ideas of them are. The first track on the album, 0.00, is probably one of the most abstract tracks on the album, with the only lyrics being these. Many have thought this may represent the creation of the universe because the track's name is literally 0.00, and also just because of how abstract of a track it is. This theory makes sense due to the main idea of time in the album, and the fact that it has a lot of religious themes, but I want to propose a different theory, that 0.00 actually represents the end of the universe. Perhaps that we are represents humans becoming a single consciousness and transcending time, space, and the universe as a whole. Given the nature of time in Glover's work, it's limiting to look at 3:15:20 as a solely linear project. And because the internet, Donald plays around with the idea of non-linearity with the song 3005, which is meant to represent the beginning, end, and middle point of the album. The next track on the album is Algorithm. Algorithm is arguably the most dense track on the album in terms of the amount of ideas and themes found throughout it. I talked a little bit about how it answers the question of, but really, are you eating though? In my last video. And I also talked about how it touched on the idea of humans' obsession of death and immortality already in this video. But at its core, Algorithm is about internet addiction, with lines such as,
Supercomputer status, walking along streets. Everyone is an addict, stomping the concrete. What was the motivation? Constant communication.
Here Glover directly calls us addicts, saying that we are stumbling on the concrete, presumably because we are all preoccupied looking at our phones. Glover says the reason for the internet was quote-unquote constant communication, but further lyrics make us question if Glover really believes this. Lyrics such as, Glover seems to think that the internet was created as a huge experiment, and that we the people are the guinea pigs of this experiment. The last line I want to point out is when Glover says,
Everybody wanna get chose like Moses.
Now, while initially listening to this album, I didn't give much thought to this line, mostly because, firstly, I didn't know too much about religion or Moses, and secondly, I thought it just boiled down to everyone wants to be special or famous. But when writing this video, I was determined to actually get to the bottom of this line and see if it had a deeper meaning. And well, it does. I reached out to my good friend Ari, who is very knowledgeable about both Christianity and Judaism, and it really opened my eyes to what the line actually meant. I asked him about Moses, and he told me about how Moses convinced the Pharaoh of Egypt at the time to release the Jewish slaves being held. Moses warned of plagues which would come over Egypt if the slaves were not released, and when the Pharaoh didn't listen, he suffered by having his son killed by the plague. Initially, I really only saw Moses as a mouthpiece for God, and while in a lot of ways he is, I also see him as somewhat of a savior of the Jewish people now. This transformation helped me see the line in a new context. Everybody wants to be chosen like Moses means not that everyone wants to be popular or famous, but that everyone wants to be a leader, a speaker who will ignite change in the world. We see this on social media all the time, as everyone posted their stories on Instagram preaching change. In this track, I think Algorithm is just a metaphor for God, as it is the algorithm which ultimately decides who has a voice to create change and who doesn't on the internet. The last thing I want to note on this track is the end, where we seem to hear distorted humans screaming. This goes along with my theory about the end of the world being the setting of this album. Those screams could be the screams of humans dying. So, I don't have much knowledge or background in music production, which is unfortunate because that's a whole aspect to this album that I don't really know about or can't delve into. So I contacted my friend Siraj and a former collaborator. He did the soundtrack on my last short film, and I asked him to pick a track and analyze it musically and the production of it. And he picked Algorithm, which I think was a fantastic choice to pick, and because I think it's a very interesting track from the music production standpoint. And so he made a video about the production of Algorithm, and I think it's very good. He makes a lot of good points and fantastic connections. So without further ado, I'll play the video. But before that, make sure to go check him out on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Links will be in the description and also on the screen right now. He's a great musical artist. He's going to college at Berkeley for music, and he really knows what he's doing, and I like his music. So go check him out. He's great. And here's the video.
Hello friends, what's going on? My name's Siraj. To anyone who's watching this, I'm an artist, musical artist. I'm also a student at Berkeley College of Music. And today I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to go through the song Algorithm by Childish Gambino off the album 3/15/20, which felt kind of under the radar compared to a lot of his other releases, which is crazy because Bonfire came out in 2011, and that means 2021 we've spent a whole decade with Donald Glover making music, which has been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool watching him weave through the years as he develops and like finds his own sound. This album is crazy. It feels like a better soundtrack than what Tron Legacy's soundtrack was. Like, I felt like I could sync that movie or play that game and listen to this album and be totally satisfied. So let's just start it from the top, and I just want to separate it between, the beginning, the chorus, and all that jazz. So let's just start from the top. Let's just have fun with it. Let's just go. I like that. It's like deceptive, that little deceptive thing that he did there. I don't know if it's exactly a deceptive cadence there, but yeah, at least the purpose of it was there. I like how he kind of like threw you off with some like random splice sample and just threw you, like whacked you with it. Super hard hitting kick drum. Love the processing on that.
Supercomputer status, walking along streets. Everyone is an addict, some in the concrete. What was the motivation? Constant communication. Everybody wanna get chose like Moses. King Mount Mother Earth, smelling like roses.
I mean, obviously, I'm not even gonna dabble into the lyrical aspect of this song because it's fantastic. I love, I was talking about Moses and stuff. You feel like you're trudging through something, like you're trying to make it through something, and you're walking, and it's taking all of your effort, and that's because of that super push and pull bass drum. I like to call it like the warrior groove. It's like he's manipulating that compression there. That's super cool. And then you have those super dry vocals. I mean, like, if you think about the concept of being dry, it's rough. It goes slower. There's so much friction. And that's what that dryness and that vocals does, and that vocal synth. You cut out all of the wet and it's like all just that low mid and that high mid and all those flat high frequencies there. Just low cut it completely, and it cuts through, and you can really feel it. And that's definitely, they got to use like RVox or some super hard compression on those, because those are all squashed the fuck out of those. It's cool. It really adds to that effect.
Way too efficient. Made us the guinea pig. It told you with no permission. Told her to call a friend. Didn't tell her to listen. So very scary. So binary. Take a roll one. I go to sleep. Oh my.
No, I want to go to that chorus because it's mostly this through that part. Yeah, that's fine.
Simply perfect. The algorithm is perfect.
Yeah. It's that all of a sudden, like, we have just thrown into like 90s R&B. We're just like, yeah, give me like fucking Outkast right here. Give me some fucking. It's cool. That was really great. It's still, you got that like push and pull, but on top of it, we're just gonna groove. We're just gonna get into the groove, and it's such a good, like, you could use this for so many different purposes. Even if you were just like doing an ad for a gym, like this would be a great song to work out to. It's like getting in the groove, and that's what an algorithm, like, that the title's fitting. He's really focusing on the pocket of the tune, and he could care less about anything else except that pocket. But like, that push and pull is what makes this song on the album. Why Donald chose to put this song on the second track, because this, like, you gotta think as when you're an artist, like, how you're gonna order your tracks. Algorithm number 2, it's just so, it's a simple groove. It's a push and pull, but I mean, it's so, you feel it. It's great. Ooh, the sidechain compression, parallel compression too there, going back and forth. It's got that synth, that whole vaporwave vibe there. And then we segue into this, which this is like, so this is your B, so this is your like bridge or your C section here. We're just like, you're just trying to hop and fuse right now, which is crazy. It's great. I love it. And I couldn't tell like what this sounds like. I almost feel like all of a sudden we went from fucking an Imagine Dragons meets Daft Punk meets fucking, what's it called? We got it. What's the name? Death Grips. That freaking that C section right there. all of a sudden it just gets a little bit messier, but in a good way. Oh, that's so and that's such the same idea, the vocal processing there. We even took it farther, and now it's like all fries, and it's instead of like a nice dense vocal, we just keep on taking that low cut, and we're really manipulating it with our compressor and our low cut there.
Freedom of being wrong, freedom of being lost. Wait a minute.
Yeah, and drop the original groove. Grab that pusher pull in there. They're telling you that's the money maker on this song.
We ain't good over here now. Is you ain't good over here now? Dreaming like the moon, do again now. Looking for something more to the algorithm is perfect.
Back into it. Got more harmonies now. What scale is it? It's in a modal scale. Oh, I think it's just in harmonic minor. Oh, that's such a good idea. That's so gospel. And okay, just to throw gospel chops in, like, you know, we're like going, like, we got like this super groovy, you know, vibe going on, and that's the most the classic thing to do there. Is it called for it. It was like really screaming. It was like, you know, with all this, you know, Pocket really originates in a church when it comes to that R&B feel, and that's what he's shouting out in the chorus. So he's telling you this is an R&B song, like the way the form is, and that's what he did. And he you know, the whole band cuts out, and it's just that vocal. It's a very Kanye thing to do, because Kanye is the one that said that the best instrument that man has is his voice, and that originates from gospel music. And if you see what Kanye is doing, it's all gospel stuff, so that makes sense. That's very cool. And then we're gonna go fuck it up. Cool, perfect. You know what? And that's like a clown core. I don't know if you guys have heard this stuff. Clown core, they're like a clown metal band. It sounds like that. It sounds like that's and just to gospel, and just morphed into clowncore. And the only thing is, like, that would be like an intro for a clowncore song. That would get all fucking crazy with the compression and the circus sounds. And then again, more Death Grips type stuff. But it's almost like you took like a Nirvana breakdown, but like put it into a Death Grip style format. There's like the end of a Nirvana song where like Dave Grohl's like, and they're all going, it sounds like that. And he's just trying to find a new groove, and he's weaving into the next song. Cool. That was Talking Through Algorithm by Childish Gambino. Super dope tune, a lot of different influences there that he's really shouting out. Super creative way to put it all together. Yeah.
The third track on 31520 is Time, which I've also briefly touched on before. The track also features Ariana Grande. I already touched on Time, but I think there's more to unpack with the song. One of the first lyrics Gambino sings is this. I think this fits nicely with my theory about 0.00. Perhaps Glover is suggesting that the people are trying to free themselves and transcend to a higher plane. The next set of lyrics I want to bring to attention are these. These lyrics also support my 0.00 theory that the album is partially about the end of time and the end of the universe. Even if the world isn't ending, Gambino makes sure to point out that we are always running out of time. The last lyrics I want to talk about are these. I think here Glover suggests that time is the ultimate power, and that everyone is struggling for more time, and that ultimately time is the driving force of the universe. The fourth track on 3:15:20 is 12.38. This track features multiple artists, those being 21 Savage, Inc., and Kaja Bonet. For the purpose of not having this video be too long, I'm only going to focus on Glover's verses in this song. The first set of lyrics I want to mention are these.
She said, eat this psilocybin. I'ma be right back. I'm like, alright. Hey, I don't know what psilocybin is. This better not be no Molly. She just laughed and closed the door.
Do a quick Google search of psilocybin and you'll realize it's not Molly, but instead a variant of magic mushrooms. We can probably presume that Glover is tripping on mushrooms for most of this song because of this. An article from the Journal of Psychopharmacology titled Effects of Psilocybin on Time Perception and Temporal Control of Behavior in Humans, it says, quote, hallucinogenic psilocybin is known to alter the subjective experience of time, unquote. This effect plays right into the core themes of the album, those being of time. The song also seems to describe a relationship that Glover possibly had, in which he yearned for something deeper and more long-term with the person he was in a relationship, but the feelings were not mutual. We can gather this most from this set of lyrics.
Girl, you cancerous. You gon' rule my life. Let me get this paperweight, then come be my wife. She just laughed and touched my face. But you don't understand what this is. Wait. I ain't looking for another lifetime. Let's just stay here and enjoy the greatness.
Gambino wants to make this girl his wife, but the girl, quote, isn't looking for another lifetime, or in other words, isn't interested in a long-term relationship. Glover seemingly gets attached to this girl, and one day finds her gone. We can infer this through these lyrics.
I was loving life, I got too deep. Woke up in my room, she was long gone. Tony singing me another sad song. Ooh, eternity. On till we meet again.
Gambino got quote-unquote too deep, and because of this, he scared off the girl, and so she left him. To him, it feels like eternity until they meet again. In this song, Glover again plays around with the concept of time, and how certain events can distort our sense of time, whether it be with drugs, like magic mushrooms, or heartbreak. The next song is 19.10, and is probably one of my favorite songs off the album. There's really only a couple set of lines I want to touch on in this song, as the lyrics are slightly repetitive. The first lyrics are these.
To be beautiful is to be haunted.
Here Glover alludes to the fact that attractive people are more desirable, and therefore, quote, to be beautiful is to be hunted. Perhaps in this sense, Glover is arguing that being beautiful is both a gift and a curse, and that while being beautiful may have its uses, you will always be hunted because of your beauty. The second set of lyrics I want to talk about are these.
To be happy really means that someone else ain't. And balance ain't a one-room thing. Everything is give and take.
Here Glover touches on something that he has already talked about in his show Atlanta, that there are winners and losers in life. In Atlanta's pilot episode, Erm makes this observation.
I just keep losing. I mean, some people just supposed to lose for balance in the universe. I mean, like are there just some people on Earth who are supposed to be here just to make it easier for the winners? Like really?
In Glover's worldview, for every happy person, there is a sad person, and for every winner, there is a loser. Glover sees this as a fact of life, saying, quote, everything is give and take, unquote. The next track on the album is 24.19, and here Gambino again seems to be reflecting on what seems to be the current relationship he is in. Gambino questions why this person he's with is still with him, saying,
Take me to the fair, but I don't really care. You wouldn't change a hair. Sometimes I wonder why you love me, but you love me. I always make you cry, no matter
In classic Gambino fashion, Glover degrades himself and talks badly of himself. Low self-esteem and self-hatred has been a theme in many previous works of Glover's, but in the latter portion of this track, we see a tonal shift, where Glover stops reminiscing on his mistakes of the past, and instead looks to make these mistakes right by thanking his partner, saying, What sticks out to me in these lyrics is the last line, "Thank you for showing me what love can be." This seems to reference that before his partner came, Glover had a skewed vision of what love and a relationship were meant to look like. This song seems to be really a sequel to 12.38, and that Glover was left by a partner he thought he was in it for the long con with, but then found his current partner who completely changed his view on love and life altogether. On 24.19, the end of the track is again disturbing as we hear what seems to be an out-of-breath man. This end also transitions into the album's most abrasive track, 32.22. The sixth track on the album is 32.22 and represents the album's midpoint. 32.22 is one of the most abstract songs on 31520 and has very repetitive lyrics. So it's not the lyrics I want to put attention to here, but rather the production of the track. I'll play some brief snippets for context first. I think one word that sums up how 32.22 sounds is chaotic. This song's unofficial name is Warlords, and you could probably see why. The song is very chaotic and confusing. I would argue that this song is meant to represent war-torn areas of the world, and maybe even the end of the world. 32.22 is probably one of my least listened to tracks on the album, so I don't have much to say about it because I simply do not know what to fully make of it. The seventh track on 31520 is 35.31. Production-wise, this track is a major departure from 32.22 and the rest of the album. The song sounds very happy, but this is juxtaposed with the lyrics of the song, which are much darker. Lines such as this reference the song's darker meaning.
Quarter brick, half brick, whole brick, ayy.
Here it is obvious that Gambino is referencing bricks of cocaine. In fact, the lyrics are all about selling drugs if you pay attention to them. Gambino goes into detail about his drug business in this set of lyrics. Obviously, Gambino here is again referencing cocaine. Glover also references the guns he has to protect himself here. In another set of lyrics, Gambino sings about how this is the life he chose and how he's been making and selling drugs since he was young. These lyrics comment on a large problem in the black community, that of young black males resorting to dropping out of school to sell drugs, as to not be broke. These lyrics also comment on how many young black males have absent fathers, and without a male role model, they again are more likely to go down the wrong path in life and resort to selling drugs. While on the surface this song may seem happy and lighthearted, in truth it's one of the darker songs of the album, as Glover sings about slinging cocaine, carrying guns, and the struggles black youth face. The next track on the album is 39.28, which is definitely the most abstract and experimental song on the album. The song is really just Donald Glover singing in auto-tune about a party, with the piano playing in the background. The song is very reminiscent of artists such as Bill Wirtz, and it's possible Gambino drew inspiration from Bill Wirtz on this track. On this track, Glover repeats these lyrics throughout the track.
Why go to the party? Why go to the party? Why go to the party at all?
Many people have speculated that 31520 takes place during, after, or before a party, or is about a party. And I do think that's part of the album, but not the whole story, which is something I'll get into at the end of this video. For now, let's move on, as I don't have much else to say about this track. It's very abstract, and I challenge all of you to go through it and decipher its meaning on your own. The next track on the album is Feels Like Summer. 42.26. You may have guessed it, but 42.26 is actually just Feels Like Summer renamed. 42.26 is probably my second favorite song on the album due to its production and message. At its core, Feels Like Summer is about global warming, again a potential threat for the destruction of the earth. The first set of lyrics I want to mention are these.
7 billion souls that move around the sun, growing faster, faster, not a chance to slow down. Slow down. Men who made machines that want what they desire. Parents trying to tell the children, please slow down. Slow down.
Gambino here is telling us that we have to slow down and realize that what we are doing as a society isn't sustainable or good for the planet. Gambino blames this on the quote, men who made machines that want what they decide. We have to treat the earth with the respect it deserves and slow down our carbon emissions and mistreatment of the planet which we all live on. Next in the song, Gambino sings,
I'm hoping that this world will change, but it just seems the same.
Gambino hopes that we as humans will change before it is too late, but he isn't sure that we will. The last set of lyrics I want to talk about are these.
Every day gets harder than the one before. Running out of water, it's about to go down. Go down. Air like killer bees that we depend upon. Birds were made for singing, waking up to no sound. No sound.
Obviously here, Gambino is referring to the ever-rising global temperature of the Earth. According to climate.gov, 2019 was the second warmest year on record. Gambino talks about the negative side effects of global warming, citing how we are running out of water and how global warming is killing the bees that we depend on. We can blame corporations all we want for global warming, but it is up to us to make changes in our daily life to help stop or at least slow carbon emissions and rising temperatures of the Earth. Personally, I've decided to become vegetarian this year. In an article from ucusa.org, it says that, quote, raising livestock accounts for roughly 15% of global greenhouse gases. Cattle are particularly harmful as their digestive systems release methane, a powerful heat-trapping gas. An article from National Geographic also states that, quote, to raise livestock we've taken over even more land than crops, an area roughly the size of Africa, unquote. We take more land and produce more carbon emissions by perpetuating a diet around livestock and meat, especially cattle. By reducing the amount of meat you eat or even going vegetarian like me, or even a step further and going vegan, you can help slow down the destruction of our planet. The penultimate track on 3:15:20 is 47.48. 47.48 is a somber song, which also happens to feature Donald Glover's children, easily making it the cutest song on the album. But what is 47.48 about? Well, we only have to look as far as the song's first verse to figure that out. Donald Glover sings,
Little girl, 13, broke down the violence. Little boys playing around, shot down the violence. The violence.
Here we can infer that 47.48 is about the effect of violence on children, whether in war zones or even in America in places with high crime rates. Donald Glover says the 13-year-old, quote-unquote, broke down, suggesting irreversible damage. Glover also mentions gangs, which make us think that being in an environment surrounded by violence, young boys may be susceptible to join a gang and perpetuate the lifestyle they were born into. In a later verse, however, Glover offers hope, saying,
Little boy, big girl, are you scared of the world? Is it hard to live? Just take care of
Glover advises the little boy and girl to just take care of their souls, and if they stay away from the violence, they'll get through it. At the end of the song, we get to what is probably the best moment of the album, where we hear a conversation between Glover and his song. I'll play it in its entirety.
What do you love?
I love who do I love?
Yeah, who do you love? Me?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Mom and Ulalo and Genesis. And I love Roland. And I love myself.
Those are good answers. Those are really good
Do
answers.
you love yourself?
I do love myself.
Does Mommy love herself?
Absolutely.
Mom, do you love yourself? Yeah, I do, you bastard.
Not only is this entire exchange adorable, but we hear Donald Glover exclaim his self-love on the album for the first time. This comes in contrast to his self-hatred we heard earlier on 24.19. This exchange shows how Donald Glover has grown as a person, a romantic partner, and a father, and leads us perfectly into the final track of the album. The last track on the album is 53.49, and it is easily my favorite track on the entire album. 53.49 to me feels like hope, happiness, and peace rolled up into one magnificent song. 53.49 is easily in my top 3 Gambino songs of all time, and for good reason. The core of 53.49 is about hope and perseverance. I already talked about some of the lines in this song, so I won't repeat myself. Instead, I'll talk about other lyrics which I feel are important to this track. Lyrics such as this.
See the colors of my father when I meditate.
This can really be interpreted in many ways, but I think it ties back into the theme of spirituality and transcendence found throughout the album, and that through his spirituality, Glover can connect with his father, who sadly passed away in 2018. Later, Glover reaffirms the self-love he has for himself, saying,
Never said it even though I probably should. I said I love me. I said I love me.
Again, a breath of fresh air. Finally, Glover has learned to love himself and be happy with who he is. The next set of lyrics I want to touch on are these.
Every moment under the sun, you do what you wanna do.
Here, Donald Glover encourages us to look for the good in every moment and, quote, do what you want to do. Don't restrict yourself based on society's standards. Strive to do what you want to do in your life. After all, life is what you make of it. Next, Glover has this to say on 53.49.
When you looking at the devil, but you looking in the mirror, what you gon' say? When your money getting long, but you know you doing wrong, what you gon' say? When you know your mama died and you running out of time, what you gonna say? When you feel alone, no, you are not alone.
Here, Glover says again that we should always try and see the bright side of things, to find the silver lining, the light in the dark. Glover reassures us that we may feel alone, but that in the end, we are not. Lastly, I want to talk about these set of lyrics.
Everything that you're feeling right now, let it out. Let it out. Alright, you ready? Okay, now 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, now do your dance, mama.
These lyrics come toward the end of the song and give me a sense of catharsis. Here, Glover is telling us to let it all out, to cry, to laugh, to do whatever. He's letting us know that whatever we are feeling is okay. Back during quarantine, I listened to this song multiple times a day for probably a week, and it really helped me get through a dark time. what Glover sings on 53.49 are words that I think we all need to hear and tell ourselves, especially now during this horrible pandemic. It isn't just the catchy tune that 53.49 boasts that makes me love it, but its message and overall how nicely it ties together all the ideas found on 31520. So what does 31520 mean? Well, I titled this video 31520, a party at the end of time, but what do I mean by that? Many people speculate that 31520 takes place or is about a party, mainly due to all the lyrics on 39.28.
Why go to the party? Why go to the party? Why go to the party at all?
And also the chorus of Algorithm.
Everybody move your body. Now do it. Here is something that's gonna make you move and groove. Algorithm.
Now, this theory didn't sit right with me when I first heard it. While it is true that parts of Gambino's album, Because the Internet, did take place during a party, I thought that it was too simple of an explanation for this album. That might be part of it, but there was something missing. A missing piece of the puzzle that would make it all make better sense. While listening to 31520 over and over for this video, seriously, I may actually have the most listens to this album on Spotify. I'm in the top 0.005% of Childish Gambino listeners, and the last song on the album is literally my most listened to song of the year of the album. I listened to this album a lot trying to understand it. So while listening to it, I realized that the missing part of the puzzle is 31520 may take place during, after, or before a party, but that party is one at the end of time. I've already talked about why I think the album is partially about the end of time, so it makes sense that 31520 is supposed to be the soundtrack of this party at the end of time. That may sound like a stretch, but it all makes sense once you take into the references to a party, the references to the end of time, and the fact that the album was released during a time where we all thought the world was slowly ending. 31520 is truly a party at the end of time, and an exciting one at that. To me, 31520 represents a time loop at the end of time, which is why we hear the same tone at the end and beginning of the album, with the screams of humanity presumably dying. But 31520 isn't a bleak album, but rather a celebration of life and the universe. 31520 may not be my favorite Gambino album, that honor still goes to Because the Internet, but I think it's certainly Glover's best album. I truly believe that 31520 is Donald Glover's masterpiece. It's questionable if he will ever make an album so cohesive and conceptually ambitious. Only time will tell. So is this really the last Childish Gambino album? I think so. All signs point to this album being a turning point in Donald Glover's music career. Even if Childish Gambino has been killed off, Donald Glover's music career will be reborn. Or who knows, maybe this is Glover's last traditional album, and from now on, Glover will only release more unorthodox music projects. Right now, however, is probably the best time to be a fan of Donald Glover since 2018. With Atlanta Season 3 on the horizon, a Lando show presumably starring Glover in the distance, and another musical project from Glover pretty much confirmed, there's a lot to look forward to as a fan of Glover. Now, initially I was only planning on making a short video on Because the Internet, but I'm glad I extended my initial video and made this video too. Now I wanted to conclude this series on Donald Glover in this video, but I still have so much to say, and I really just wanted this video to be about 31520. So I'm excited to announce that I will be making a part 3 on Donald Glover, which will be my last video on Donald Glover. This video will tie up some loose ends, and I'll talk about things such as Roscoe's Wetsuit, Clapping for the Wrong Reasons, 3005, some more Atlanta episodes, and much more. With school starting back up soon, this video probably won't be finished for a while, but I hope to get it out before my birthday, which is March 15th, coincidentally. No matter how long the video is, it won't be separated into more parts. However long it needs to be is how long it will be. Anyway, I've been Matt. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and hit the like button. So before I go, I also want to thank Siraj again for making that video about Algorithm's production. It was great. Go check him out on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Links are in the description. He's really great. Thank you again, and bye.